Democratic Republic of Congo becomes the country worst affected by conflict displacement in the world. The migrant exodus to Italy continues, but Libyan authorities also intensify deportations. A much-awaited international airport opens in Senegal. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. For the second year running, Congo is the country worst affected by conflict displacement in the world. According to the United Nations, over 1.7 million people have fled their homes so far this year because of insecurity. This brings the total number of people displaced to over 4 million. A report by the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center released on Wednesday says the scale of people fleeing violence is outpacing Syria, Yemen and Iraq. The main reasons for the rise in displacement include new armed conflicts and a rise in existing conflicts in volatile areas. The IDMC report points to delays in holding presidential elections as part of the reason for the upsurge in violence. The violence has prevented many families from accessing land and maintaining their livelihoods. 7.7 million people are severely food insecure. A lack of access to clean water has led to cholera outbreaks that have killed some 600 people. Now, Libyan authorities have deported a total of 403 migrants from 2 Libyan cities on Tuesday as part of the International Organization for Migration Voluntary Return Scheme. In Libya's coastal city of Misrata, authorities organized the voluntary return of 150 Nigerian migrants. An official at the Misrata detention center said 200 migrants had already been deported to various countries in November. Another 60 are scheduled on flights home over the next few days. Tripoli's Mitiga Airport also deported 253 migrants to Nigeria. The IOM program boards illegal migrants stranded in Libya on a one-way flight back to their home countries. The migrants, who are mainly from Africa, arrive in Libya as they attempt the journey across the treacherous waters of the Mediterranean Sea to European shores. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump will announce his decision on whether to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in a speech on Wednesday. During his presidential campaign, Trump has promised to make that move. The Palestinians, the Arabs and the United Nations warned on Tuesday that making a unilateral decision would undermine the Middle East peace process. VOA's Laritza Hoke has more.
The White House on Tuesday declined to reveal what the president has decided.
I'm not going to get ahead of the president's remarks that he'll make tomorrow. He did speak with a number of leaders this morning, and he's going to continue to have conversations with relevant stakeholders, but ultimately he'll make what he feels is the best decision for the United States.
A spokesman for the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said Trump informed Abbas on Tuesday of his intention to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem.
The position of President Abbas is very clear. If the American embassy is going to be moved to Jerusalem, this is against the international law, and this will be unacceptable from our side.
Palestinians oppose moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing the city as the capital of Israel because they want East Jerusalem as the capital of their own future state. The Arab League on Tuesday warned the United States against recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, describing such a move as clear aggression against Arabs. The Turkish president and the Iraqi prime minister condemned the move even before Trump's official announcement.
ومجلس الوزراء يرفض هذه الخطوة ويعبر عن بالغ.
The Iraqi government warns of the consequences of this decision on the stability of the area and the world, ignoring the rights of Palestinians and the Arab and Muslim world and other religions. Jerusalem is a landmark for the coexistence of all religions and ethnic groups, and no one party can take a unilateral decision on this issue.
The United Nations expressed concern about any action that could aggravate tensions in the Middle East.
The Secretary General has said that he has consistently warned against any unilateral action that would have the potential to undermine the two-state solution. And we've always regarded Jerusalem as a final status issue that must be resolved through direct negotiations between the two parties.
Late Tuesday, senior White House officials said Trump has made his decision based on reality and that he remains committed to establishing peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. They also said building a new U.S. embassy in Jerusalem may take several years. Zlatisa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
As Islamic State stands on the brink of defeat in its previous heartlands in Syria and Iraq, the group's effort to win the information war is also failing. Analysts say ISIS propaganda has seen a huge decline in recent months. ISIS is now switching attention to inspiring attacks overseas. VOA's Henry Ridgwell spoke to a terror expert who has been following the changes in Islamic State's media war.
A recent video produced by the media arm of Islamic State.
It looks like this is in Raqqa. They're trying to portray the Islamic State's army as still this professional, capable, well-oiled machine. But I mean, this is 3 guys in one truck in an abandoned city. It is miles apart from what they used to do.
Charlie Winter has been studying Islamic State propaganda since the group's inception.
The Islamic State is far less productive than it's ever been. I mean, it's almost as if someone has pressed mute on its propagandists. But in October, that was when it really just suddenly went silent. And I think that was because a media centre or a few media centres had been destroyed around Raqqa and Mayadeen in particular.
The territory held by Islamic State has shrunk to a fraction of the area it controlled just a year ago. So it has far less source material from which it can create its media. Coalition forces battling ISIS have also learned the importance of its propaganda. On the ground and online, its media operations have been targeted. Winter says the militants are recalibrating their followers' expectations of victory, from dreams of an Islamic caliphate to mere survival.
That it still has weapons, that it still has suicide bombers, that it is still a movement. Even if it doesn't have the territory, it still has the ideology, it still has the adherents, still has the true believers killing themselves in its name.
In previous years, ISIS propaganda was aimed at luring foreign believers to live in its purported Islamic utopia.
No longer is it calling for people to travel to Iraq and Syria. Instead, it's really trying to double down on getting people to carry out operations back in their home countries.
That is where Islamic State propaganda is trying to claim success. Despite little evidence of direct links, the group trumpets that it has the ability to inspire terror attacks anywhere in the world, such as the series of vehicle attacks in London and other European cities and in New York in October. That puts a big responsibility on global media that Winter says is effectively sustaining Islamic State even as the group is defeated on the battlefield.
So how the global media responds to these operations, because increasingly they are going to be the Islamic State's lifeblood. They are going to be the thing that keeps it afloat as an ideology, as a movement, as an organisation.
The latest video release from ISIS claims Egypt's Sinai Peninsula will become part of its territory. Islamic State fighters attacked a mosque in the region last week, killing more than 300 people. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Well, African political leaders and activists are fighting to ending child marriage and the exploitation of girls. Driven by factors including poverty, insecurity and religious tradition, marrying off girls once they reach puberty or even before is a deeply ingrained social custom in some African countries. According to the World Bank, the practice hampers global efforts to reduce poverty and population growth and has negative impacts on women's and children's health, educational achievement and earnings. In Washington, at the Africa Union office, a former president of Malawi, Joyce Banda, and U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson-Lee participated in a discussion on women empowerment and ending child marriage and trafficking.
We must create an environment at household level where the girl child will thrive. For that to happen, for her to be valued and be treated equally like her brother, we must ensure that the parents, they change their mindset about the girl child. She eats equally like the boy child. She's not overworked. She's not defiled because of traditional beliefs. She's not initiated. She's not mutilated. Because most foreign countries begin to allocate financial resources for the adolescent girl child. As far as I'm concerned, as an African woman leader, that's too late. We need to start from 0 to 10. Protect this girl child. Fish out those that we see with leadership qualities. Mentor them and provide education to them. Because when they don't have resources to go to high school, that's why they're getting married at 15.
As I visited Kenya, for example, to hear young women get up and talk about businesses that they're starting with courage and grit and seeking financial support for their dreams. It's important for us to be symbols for women, young women, to be support for elderly women, and to be a pathway for women who are on the journey of supporting and growing their family, but also growing their economic opportunities. So I think leadership among women is to be giving, and it is to reach out, and it is to be a standard bearer of opportunity, and to also make yourself available to be a mentor for the success of others.
Well, world leaders are pledged to end child marriage by 2030 under the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But at current rates, it will take over 100 years to end it just in Western Central Africa. That's according to the UN Children's Agency. Now, going down south in Malawi, a girl who resisted pressure to marry when she was orphaned at age 15 is now running a secondary school providing free education to needy girls. More than half of the girls in Malawi are married off before they can complete secondary school. Memory Diatseni says her mission is to give girls a chance. Lamik Masina has the story from Nsaru, a rural area outside of Malawi's capital, Lilongwe.
Atsikana Paulendo, or Girls on the Move Secondary School, is a symbol of hope for girls from poor families.
My parents could not afford to pay my school fees to any other secondary school because they're poor and don't work. They're only peasant farmers who don't earn enough from farming.
Emily is among several girls who are learning here for free. This school is a brainchild of Memory Diatseni, who resisted a push into marriage from her relatives after the death of her parents.
They never came direct to me like in Memory, you're supposed to get married, but their talks, their chats around me was really leading to telling me that I should get married. And all the time, I was able to stand up for myself to say no.
But 3 years later, she lost an uncle who was paying for her secondary education, and she left school to stay with her grandfather.
I was the only girl in the village. And when I asked about the other girls where they were, I was told they are all married. And in this small village, the expectation was that I was the next person to get married.
Instead, she began working as a volunteer teacher at an all-girls secondary school, which had just opened in her area. Here, she became friends with a volunteer teacher from Canada, who later raised funds for Diatseni's college education. After obtaining a degree in Bible studies, Diatseni shared with her Canadian benefactor, Christy Johnson, the idea of starting the all-girls secondary school.
It's such a huge achievement to a girl child. When you look at a girl child without an education, then you look at her that once she comes to this school, there's that chance that she is going to make it.
The school gets most of its funding from Rotary clubs in Canada, where Johnson lives. More than 800 girls have so far benefited from the scholarships since they began in 2007. Some are now working as teachers, while others have graduated from universities.
If I do not have APU there for me, it means that by now I would be home in the village, married, having kids, and just a housewife, and a housewife, of course, of a subsistence farmer, and I do not like that.
A graduate of economics from the University of Oklahoma in the US, Samuel plans to start an economic empowerment initiative that will help give employment to people in her village. Financial challenges have forced the school to enroll other students who pay tuition fees. Still, Nielsen plans to open a few more schools operating under the same model, and even dreams of opening colleges for the benefit of girls. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Lilongwe, Malawi.
Indeed, commendable. Now, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, a much-awaited international airport opens in Senegal. Stay with us.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Well, millennials will dominate consumer purchases and pricing power by the year 2025. This is why businesses must keep them engaged to secure brand loyalty. With more details, it's Jill Malandrino, VOA business correspondent, reporting from the NASDAQ market site in New York City.
Her Majesty the Queen honored 3 millennials from Nigeria dedicated to changing lives on Tuesday. The Queen's Young Leaders is a unique community of influential change makers, all represent 52 Commonwealth countries. The winners were announced on Tuesday and will receive their award from Her Majesty the Queen at a special ceremony at Buckingham Palace in London next year. Areas of work they are being honored for include women's rights, programming and coding, and mental health. Millennials are those who were born in 1982 and roughly the 20 years that followed. People in these years sometimes get a bad rap of being the me generation and entitled, but this could all be a problem of perception between the generations. For example, millennials place a great deal of value on flexible work schedules and using technology as a means of being more productive, according to Monster, a global online recruiting service. So it's not that millennials don't respect desk sitting, they do. They just think they're more productive ways to be, well, more productive. So let's take a look at some stats courtesy of the Nigerian Millennial Report. Globally, by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials, and that means they will be the influencers of purchasing power, and that consumption of online content would increase by at least 100%. With that in mind, millennials can't and won't be ignored, and this is exactly why businesses in Nigeria and worldwide need to get their messaging right by targeting the age group, cultural interests, and location. They are looking for content that is educational, entertaining, relative, and incorporate visual representation. The report says that YBNL, they're great at creating content for their songs that dominate Nigerian pop culture and simply talk the environment in everyday activities. P-Square also excelled at one point with content because they understood Nigerians and spoke Nigerian. Now, Channels TV, they also get it right as its flagship show broadcasts at 10 p.m. when mobile millennials are especially active, and Channels encourages strong engagement on social platforms so viewers feel really connected. All of these techniques create brand loyalty, and that is ultimately what drives the bottom line for business. From the NASDAQ market site in New York, I'm Jill Malandrino, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
How about we fly to Senegal, see what's going on there. Senegal's new much-awaited international airport opens on Thursday. From Dakar, Sophia Christensen reports on the country's efforts to position itself as a regional air hub of the 21st century.
It's all done except the finishing touches. After more than 10 years in waiting, Senegal's new Aéroport International Blaise Diagne is set to open its doors. Located 47 kilometers from the capital Dakar, the airport is linked to Senegal's toll motorway and will be connected to the capital via a high-speed train expected to start running in 2019. The shiny new structure is part of a wider plan to decongest the city and turn Senegal into a major air hub for West Africa.
Senegal
already has a comparative advantage in this sector. We are a natural hub, basically only 5, 6 or 7, 8 hours from most places. We are in the centre and want to harness that with this international airport.
Today, Senegal serves around 2 million air passengers per year. The new airport is currently built for 3 million, but the final aim is to extend the building to a capacity of 10 million, which would make it the busiest airport in West Africa. A new national airline, Air Sénégal, is also expected to start operating early next year. It recently became the first African company to buy 2 of the latest Airbus A330 jets.
When you talk about Paris, you talk about Air France. When you talk about Turkey, you talk about Turkish Airlines. No country can be an air hub without its own airline company.
The government is placing high stakes on the economic potential of this project. An aeronautics school and an aircraft maintenance center are being set up to boost local employment. And the airport's location is strategically chosen to promote tourism along the Senegalese coastline. But experts say the government needs to think carefully about how best to position itself on the market.
The state has played its part by setting up a revolutionary structure. Now it needs to transform this achievement. It is not enough to simply have an airport with a lot of economic potential. You need the right strategy to exploit it.
Senegal is not alone in seeking the regional air hub status. Ivory Coast is a hot contender, and last year the number of passengers passing through Abidjan's Port Bouet airport rose by almost a quarter to around 2 million per year. Air Sénégal will be in direct competition with Air Côte d'Ivoire and Togo's ASKI Airlines, which is soon to start direct flights connecting Paris and Lomé. And as taxi drivers point out, the new airport is not welcomed by everyone.
The new airport is going to be bad for our business because only new official taxis will be allowed to access it. So we will not be able to take customers back to Dakar.
For better or for worse, Senegal is buckled up for a new journey. Sophia Christensen for VOA News, Dakar.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Facebook is launching a messaging app for children. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Now, Facebook is launching a messaging app for children. The free app is aimed at kids under 13 who can't yet have their own accounts under Facebook's rules, though they often do. Now, Messenger Kids comes with a slew of controls for parents. This service won't let children add their own friends or delete messages. Only parents can do that. Now, kids don't get a separate Facebook or Messenger account. Face filters and playful masks can be distracting for adults. But for kids who are just learning how to form relationships and stay in touch with their parents digitally, there are ways to express themselves. Well, next up, for decades, they have ferry tourists and busy Londoners through the capital's bustling streets. Now, London's iconic black taxi cabs are evolving. New TX black cabs began transporting fare-paying passengers in London on Tuesday. Developed by the London Electric Vehicle Company, its battery-powered hybrid engine can run for up to 129 kilometers on pure electric power. It's also fitted with a small petrol range extender that allows it to go up to 595 kilometers. Well, and finally, why is there a violin player at a startup conference? Well, he's demonstrating his own startup gadget, the GEMC, at TechCrunch Disrupts in Berlin. A clip-on Bluetooth device measures the vibrations coming from the instrument. The data is then sent to a smartphone or tablet and connected to an app that helps the user learn how to play the instrument. Meanwhile, the Godak app turns a smartphone into a retro-disposable camera. You can only take 24 photos before the app takes a 10-minute break to change film. Once all the photos have been taken, you need to wait for 72 hours before the app develops them, and you can view the photos. And that is what is trending today. Well, thousands of birds that usually migrate to Africa during the colder months are now making Israel their final winter destination. Avian experts say climate change is to blame, and human interaction with the various species is more critical than ever. VOA's Robert Raphael explains.
In Israel's Hula Valley, thousands of cranes are now making the wetlands their temporary winter home rather than continuing their annual voyage to the African plains. The reason? Environmental experts blame climate change. Shea Agman is the avian coordinator of the wetlands park of Agamon Hula, where workers are monitoring and feeding the birds. He says increasing drought conditions across Africa are drawing multiple species to the park's cooler, more lush climate.
Every bird species trying to get from the north of us, from Central and Eastern Europe and Western Asia to Africa, had to cross over here and used to stop here just for short stopovers to gain weight, to gain food, to gain strength. Today, the deserts are just way longer, way bigger than it used to be.
Zoology professor Yossi Leshem of Tel Aviv University says this change in migration directly impacts farmers.
These small birds, they go in the fields in Europe and they eat the insects which are making damage to the agriculture. If they are not there, they have to use more pesticide. You use more pesticide, you pay more money, and then you are not only killing the bird, you are killing the people.
Shea Agman says the bird's increasingly northern migration means a more crucial role for humans.
From now on, almost every aspect of nature conservation would be always in the hands of human beings. We'll have to deal with it all the time. We'll be in charge of the health and wellness of every species around us.
Agman says since the 1950s, the number of birds that have preferred to stay in Israel until late March has risen substantially. Robert Raphael, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A cannon used to be a common military weapon.
Loose cannon.
So, are Anna and Jonathan talking about an old battle?
Hey, I'm looking for someone to host a political event tomorrow night. Can your friend Sylvia help out?
Sylvia? She's a loose cannon. You never know what she's going to say. She could easily